Book 2, The January Mourning, The Keller Cases. Written by R.B. Martin. January doesn't knock. December lingers. It buries its sins in snow and pretends the cold makes everything clean. January digs them up. 4 weeks after the river tried to keep me, the city still believed Rupert Hawthorne had vanished into polite silence. No headlines, no indictments, no obituaries. Just a man with deep pockets who decided winter was a good time to disappear. Men like Hawthorne don't disappear. They recalibrate. The Macland money was thinning faster than the ice on my office windows. Retainers evaporate when widows stop answering calls. Clients don't like detectives who attract gunfire. And business has a short memory when blood hits the docks. Rent was due. The radiator still coughed like it had something to confess. And I had the kind of hangover that didn't come from whiskey. New Year's Eve had been loud. Too loud. Champagne, dim lights, cheap resolutions. Connie Macland in a black dress that looked like regret stitched into silk. She'd been drinking. I'd been stupid. January has a way of keeping receipts. Outside, snow crusted the sidewalks in uneven ridges. Street lamps hummed over slush and exhaust. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tried to make the night sound honest. I watched the door longer than usual before turning the lock. When you survive men like Hawthorne, you don't stop looking over your shoulder. You just learn which shadows feel heavier. The phone rang before I reached the desk. Not a client's ring. Not the casual curiosity of someone cheating on a spouse. This one rang like obligation. I let it go to the 4th buzz, then I picked up, and January began. Chapter 1. Case file, Vance, L. January 3rd, 2026. The hallway smelled like boiled cabbage and tired plaster, same as every morning. January hadn't improved the place. The radiator pipes still rattled inside the walls like something trying to claw its way out. Paint peeled near the baseboards in thin, curling strips. The overhead bulb flickered with the kind of hesitation you only see in men about to make a bad decision. I balanced coffee in one hand. A grease-stained paper bag rested under my arm, already surrendering to the bagel inside. Breakfast of men who owe rent. My mailbox leaned slightly off-center in its row near the stairwell, brass plate dull, hinge bent just enough to suggest history. I nudged it open with my knuckle. 3 envelopes, 1 utility bill, 1 refinancing offer for something I didn't own, 1 thick, cream-colored envelope that didn't belong, no return address, no machine crease, no postal scar, hand-delivered. January doesn't use the postal service. I shifted the coffee to my fingertips and pulled the envelope free. Heavy stock, clean edges, my name typed. Not written. Martin Keller Suite, 3B. Formal. Deliberate. I let the mailbox clang shut and stood there longer than necessary. Mrs. Delaney's radio murmured faintly upstairs. Someone coughed behind a closed door. Snowlight filtered through the frosted window near the stairwell, turning everything pale and harmless. No footsteps. Still. I tucked the envelope beneath my arm and headed down the corridor. Halfway there, the coffee staged a rebellion. The lid slipped. A thin ribbon of black slid over my knuckles. Good start, I muttered. The office door stuck like it always did in cold weather. I shouldered it open, kicked it closed, and laid everything out on the desk in uneven stages. Coffee first. Bag second. Envelope last. It sat between the ashtray and the radiator like it owned the room. I didn't open it right away. That's the thing about messages you don't ask for. If you don't break the seal, they don't exist yet. They sit there in quiet potential, not quite real. I peeled off my gloves instead, let the heater hum weakly against the window, watched frost patterns crawl across the glass in slow geometric surrender. Then I slid a finger beneath the flap. Inside was a single sheet, no letterhead, No greeting, no signature. Just one sentence. 12:47. Again. Below it, a photograph. I turned it over. It was me. New Year's Eve, Connie Macklin's apartment lobby. Her arm looped through mine, her head tilted toward my shoulder. Champagne haze blurred the background. Her eyes closed. My face wasn't smiling. It was tired. The timestamp glowed faint in the corner. 12:47 a.m. I set the photograph down slowly. The radiator knocked twice. Outside, a car backfired. Hawthorne was gone, at least on paper. But men like that don't vanish. They redistribute. The phone rang. Not the easy trill of a client hoping to catch a cheating spouse. This was sharper, measured, intentional. I let it ring twice, 3 times. On the 4th, I lifted the receiver. Keller. Silence first. Then a voice I didn't recognize. Calm. Educated. Patient. Mr. Keller, it said, we believe you've received our reminder. My eyes drifted to the photograph. What do you want? A brief pause. Your discretion. Click. The line went dead. The coffee had already gone cold. January doesn't bury. It observes. And this time, it had my picture. The dial tone hummed like it knew something I didn't. I held the receiver a second longer before setting it down. Your discretion! That wasn't a threat. Threats bark. They posture. They demand to be heard. That was a courtesy. I picked up the photograph again. Connie's head rested against my shoulder. My hand sat at the small of her back. It didn't look romantic. It looked inevitable. Gravity does that. It pulls whether you mean it to or not. The timestamp burned in the corner. 12:47. Same minute Macklin's watch stopped. Same minute a transfer authorization cleared an escrow account. Same minute a man's life ended under polite circumstances. Some men leave fingerprints. Others leave time. I reached for the ashtray out of habit, found it empty, and reconsidered quitting. The choices lined themselves up without asking permission. I could call Halpern, slide the envelope across his desk, and let him carry the weight. He'd listen. He'd rub his jaw. Then he'd tell me what he told me after the docks. You don't have proof. I could call Connie, ask what she remembered about that night, ask who she'd spoken to since, ask if anyone had paid her a quiet visit. But if she was already under pressure, even lightly, the call would ripple, and ripples travel. Or I could ignore it. Burn the paper, shred the photo. Let whoever was watching think the message landed and slid off me like rain. That was the cleanest play. It was also the most dangerous. Silence isn't strength when someone else controls the clock. I stood and crossed to the window, easing the blinds apart a half-inch. Street below. Delivery truck idling. A kid in a red scarf kicking at slush. An old man walking a dog that looked tired of winter. No black sedans, no silhouettes. But surveillance isn't cinematic. It's patient. It's a car parked 2 blocks away. It's the woman at the dry cleaner who remembers faces. It's someone who already has enough. I went back to the desk and picked up the envelope again. No postmark. No fiber tears from sorting equipment. No mechanical impression. It hadn't traveled through a system. It had traveled through my building. Whoever placed it knew my suite. Knew I checked the box myself. Knew I came down in the morning with coffee and something greasy wrapped in paper. That wasn't distance. That was access. I turned the photograph over once more. There, faint in the lobby glass behind us. Headlights. A sedan parked across the street. I hadn't noticed it that night, but the camera had. I leaned closer. The plate was blurred. Not by accident. The blur was too clean, too intentional. Whoever sent it didn't want me chasing a car. They wanted me chasing the clock, 12:47. Again. And January had just decided to make it personal. The call hadn't asked for money, hadn't asked for surrender, hadn't asked for a meeting. They wanted discretion, which meant they believed I was about to make noise. I wasn't. Until now. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out what remained of the Mackland file. Copies. Notes. Sketches of Pier 14 drawn in pencil when sleep wouldn't come. Paper that had already cost more than it should have. I spread it beside the photograph. Hawthorne was dust in the wind. But dust doesn't take pictures. Someone was managing his weather. And if they thought a blurred plate and a timestamp would push me back into silence, they didn't know me. I slid the photograph into the Mackland folder, not as evidence, as reminder. Then I picked up the phone and dialed Connie's number. 1 ring, 2, 3, voicemail. I didn't leave a message. Instead, I hung up and dialed the only other number that might answer before noon. Halpern picked up on the second ring. "You're early," he said. "I got mail." Silence. "What kind of mail?" "The kind that doesn't use stamps." Another pause. Longer. "You want to tell me about it?" "Not yet. That's not how this works, Marty." "No," I said quietly. "It's exactly how it works." I hung up before he could press. There it was. The decision, not to ignore it, not to panic, to move. If they wanted discretion, they were worried about noise, which meant the small case I'd agreed to glance at, the missing accountant with polite paperwork and a modest retainer, wasn't small anymore. January doesn't threaten, it tests. And I just decided not to stay quiet. Outside, the church bell marked the hour. I checked my watch. 8:47 a.m., 4 hours to midnight in someone else's arithmetic. 4 hours until 12:47 mattered again. And this time, I planned to be watching. Chapter 2. Case file. Vance, L. January 3rd, 2026. The knock came just before 9. 2 taps. Measured. Clients who bang on doors are usually hiding something. Clients who knock like that believe they don't need to. I slid the Mackland folder deeper into the drawer and shut it with my knee. "Come in." The door opened halfway. A man stepped inside and paused long enough to study the room. Early 30s. Navy wool coat. Gloves tucked neatly into one pocket. Shoes polished but salted by the sidewalk. Hair parted with intention. He didn't look like trouble. He looked like paperwork. "Mr. Keller?" "That depends who's asking." A thin smile. He closed the door behind him. "Elliot Crane." He offered his hand. Firm grip, slight tremor, not fear. Contained agitation. I gestured to the chair across from me. He sat straight-backed, coat still on, like he didn't intend to settle in. "I was referred," he said, "by a colleague. They usually are. My company handles financial compliance for mid-sized development firms." "Congratulations." His jaw tightened a fraction, but his tone stayed level. "One of our senior accountants has gone missing." There it was, routine on the surface. "Police?" "A report's been filed. There's no sign of forced entry, no ransom, no immediate evidence of violence." "And you don't believe in clean disappearances?" "She doesn't miss deadlines," he said. "She doesn't miss meetings. She doesn't vanish." "Debt? Not that I'm aware of." "That's not the same thing." A controlled breath. "There's something else." There always is. She was reviewing an audit file for a private client. She flagged discrepancies. "How large?" He hesitated. 7 figures. That shifted it. "Client?" He held my gaze a moment too long. "That's confidential." "Then so am I." Another pause. "Coderson Holdings." The name meant nothing. And that was fine. January doesn't introduce itself twice. I leaned back. "You want me to find her or find the money?" "Both." That was honest. And if she left on her own? I need to know that. And if she didn't? His jaw tightened. I need to know that more. He slid a manila folder across the desk, a photograph clipped to the front. Laura Vance, blonde, clear eyes, professional headshot against a neutral background, the kind companies use when they want investors to trust their math. No champagne haze, no timestamp, just a woman who believed numbers made sense. "What's your retainer?" I asked. He quoted it. Not generous, but enough to buy another week of heat. "Half up front." He produced an envelope without argument. Crisp bills. Clean. I didn't count them. "That's fine," he said. "Most men wait for you to check." He stood before I did. "She was logged into the audit server late Monday," he added. "Around midnight. After that, nothing. Phone inactive. No outgoing calls. Midnight's a lonely hour." She wasn't the lonely type. That wasn't evidence, it was belief. He paused at the door. "If she contacts you," I said, "you call me before you call anyone else." "I understand." He left. The door closed with quiet certainty. I remained seated, studying Laura Vance's photograph. 7 figures missing. Private client. No ransom. No goodbye. Simple. That's what I told myself. I tucked the envelope of cash into the drawer and pushed the Macland file farther back where it couldn't stare at me. One problem at a time. That's how you stay alive. I finished the cold coffee, pulled on my coat, and checked the hallway before stepping out. No black sedans, no cameras, no reminders, just January. Cold. Ordinary. Pretending to be harmless. I locked the office and headed toward Laura Vance's apartment. If she'd walked away, I'd know soon enough. If she hadn't, then this wasn't about numbers. And January was about to get expensive. The office always felt smaller when I was about to leave it, like the walls were measuring what I might not come back from. I crossed to the coat stand and pulled down the navy peacoat. Issued once upon a time to men who sailed colder water than this. The wool still carried weight. Memory stitched into the seams. January respects preparation. I ran the ritual. Not nervous, just thorough. Drawer open. Colt government model. 45. Clean. Oiled. Seated right. Magazine checked. Slide racked once. Eased forward without ceremony. Safety on. Back into the shoulder rig beneath the coat. Black gloves. Reinforced knuckles. No logos. Luckies. Matches. Wallet. Cash split between pockets. Keys. Routine keeps you breathing. I shrugged into the coat, flipped the collar once against the cold, and killed the lights. The building didn't protest. Down the stairs. Out the door. January met me without introduction. Mid-morning glare bleached the street. Tires hissed through slush. A delivery van idled 2 buildings down. The air tasted metallic. I didn't search for the tail. You don't search for something that wants to be noticed. You let it present itself. It was parked across from the laundromat. Black Oldsmobile Delta 88. Late 70s body. Clean lines. Tinted glass darker than it should have been. Spoked wheels polished enough to admire themselves. Engine running. Exhaust steady. The driver's shape filled the front seat. Thick shoulders. Head barely moving. Professional stillness. I didn't slow. Didn't stare. Crossed the street. Let a city bus cut between us. Kept walking toward my car. In the hardware store window, I saw the Delta ease from the curb. Not aggressive, attentive. Good. I unlocked my car, slid inside, let the engine idle, adjusted the mirror like I cared about my reflection. 2 lengths back. Not crowding, not drifting. Just there. I pulled into traffic. Left turn, right, stoplight. They stopped. Pedestrian crossing. They waited. Not hired amateurs. Not muscle for a missing accountant. This was continuity, or insurance, or both. I drove normally. You don't shake a tail by sprinting. You shake one when it matters. Laura Vance's building rose 6 blocks north. Brick exterior. Narrow balconies collecting snow like unpaid bills. I parked curbside. The Delta rolled past. Didn't slow. Didn't park. Just drifted through the intersection and vanished around the corner. They wanted proximity, not conversation. I stepped out and scanned once. Forgettable. No sedan visible. That didn't mean gone. It meant disciplined. I buttoned the coat, flexed my gloved hands, and headed for the entrance. If they wanted to watch, I'd give them something to measure. Laura Vance was missing, and someone preferred I remain curious but harmless. That was enough to sharpen me. The buzzer panel wore the usual scars. People press hard when they want answers. Vance, L, 3rd floor. I pressed once. Nothing. Pressed again. Silence. I stepped back, giving the door the illusion of patience. An older woman approached from inside carrying groceries. I caught the door before it closed. "Thank you." She looked at me like I was an inconvenience and kept walking. The lobby was narrow, mail slots crooked, rug faded beyond memory. 3rd floor. Unit 3C. The hallway smelled of detergent and radiator heat. No music. No television bleed. I knocked. Professional. Not urgent. Silence. Knocked again. Still nothing. The lock was standard. No reinforcement. No splintering. That was the first thing. If someone took her, they'd been invited. Or expected. I checked the threshold. Dust along the base. Undisturbed. Hadn't opened often. Ear against the wood. No hum of appliances. No movement. I stepped back and examined the frame. There, a faint crescent near the strike plate. Not damage. A whisper. Metal had kissed paint and left without complaint. Too clean for panic. Someone had opened this door without a key and closed it again. I glanced down the hall. Empty. At the far window, the street was visible. Black Delta 88. Parked across the way, engine idling. Driver unmoving. Watching. Good. Let him. I reached into my coat and removed the small leather roll. Tension wrench. Pick. Suspicious tools. Necessary ones. The cylinder gave in less than 10 seconds. Cheap locks are loyal to no one. I turned the knob slowly. The door opened. The air inside was stale but calm. No rot, no violence. I stepped in and closed it quietly. One room layout. Kitchen right. Desk against the far wall. Books aligned. Couch squared. No struggle. Laptop on the desk. Closed. Mug beside it. Dried ring at the bottom. Mail stacked neatly. Everything arranged. Too arranged. I moved slow. Shoes by the door. Winter coat missing. Handbag absent. Refrigerator light flicked on when I opened it. Milk expired yesterday. Leftovers untouched. People planning long absences don't leave perishables. Bathroom. Towel stiff at the edges. Used. Not recent. Back to the desk. I ran a gloved finger across the surface. Dust. Except for a rectangle. Clean. Recently. Legal size footprint. Paper removed. Not electronics. Not valuables. Paper. I crouched and checked the trash. Empty. Too empty. Missing people forget trash. They don't curate it. I stood still and let the room settle. No chaos. No theft. Entry with restraint. Removal with purpose. If she left willingly, it was after someone proved they could enter without permission. If she didn't, then she left under supervision. I moved to the window and parted the blind slightly. The Delta 88 sat exactly where it had been. Driver still. Not smoking, not checking time, just waiting. He wasn't here to retrieve. He was here to confirm, which meant whoever sent him already knew what had been taken. They were measuring how long it would take me to see it. I let the blinds fall. Laura Vance had touched something expensive. 7 figures rarely travel alone. And 1247 had already shown up once in her audit notes. That wasn't coincidence. That was structure. I stepped back into the hallway and locked the door exactly as I'd found it. Clean, neutral, unremarkable. At the stairwell window, I paused. The Delta's brake lights flared once, then dimmed. Still there. Still patient. January doesn't chase. It studies. And now it knew I understood the game. The question wasn't whether they were watching. It was whether they believed I'd play quiet. They were about to find out. Chapter 3. Case file. Vance, L. January 3rd, 2026. I didn't head for the stairs. I stood in the hallway and listened. Buildings. Talk if you let them. Pipes ticking inside walls. Floorboards settling. A door opening somewhere below. Then, television. Game show applause. Artificial laughter turned too loud. Volume past comfort. That usually means one of two things: hearing loss or loneliness. Either way, it meant someone was home. And people who stay home develop hobbies: watering plants, sorting mail, watching doors. I followed the sound. Unit 3A. Door painted beige, the color of surrender. Brass lion knocker dulled into something toothless. I knocked. The television dipped slightly. Remote pressed, but not committed. Footsteps shuffled. Chain slid. Door opened 3 inches. One eye studied me. White hair pinned tight, powdered cheeks, lipstick drawn with resolve. Yes? Mourning. Martin Keller. I'm looking into something for Miss Vance. The eye sharpened. She hasn't been around. That's so. The chain held. Couple days, maybe more. You see anyone come by? Pause. The television volume crept upward again behind her. I don't pry. That's admirable. She studied me harder. You're not police. No, ma'am. They came already. That stopped me. When? Tuesday morning. Knocked, asked questions, didn't go inside, which meant they weren't invited. And after? Her gaze flicked down the hallway toward the street window. Small movement. Not small enough. Someone else came, she said. Later that evening. Describe. Tall. Coat. Dark. Alone? Yes. You see him leave? She hesitated. Truth lives in hesitation. No. Anything else? He didn't knock. He had keys. Clearer. And outside? Black car. Parked across the street. There it was. Seen it before? No. Her certainty was quiet but absolute. What time? I don't check clocks. Fair. The chain rattled slightly as she adjusted her grip. Is she in trouble? She asked. I'm trying to make sure she isn't. She searched my face for something. Authority, reassurance, confession. I gave her none. If you see that car again, she said softly, you might stay inside. The door closed. Chain slid home. Television surged louder than before. I stood there a moment. Police knocked. Didn't enter. That evening, a tall man with keys did. Black car outside, no visible exit. That isn't panic. That's permission. I walked to the hallway window and didn't bother hiding the look. Black Delta 88. Engine idling. Driver still. He wasn't pretending invisibility, which meant he wanted acknowledgement, without conversation. Not muscle. Message. Outside, the air bit cleaner. I lit a Lucky and let the flame linger. Smoke rose slow in the pale light. The Delta's driver's side window lowered an inch. Not enough for a face, enough to confirm he knew I knew. Then it rolled back up. No horn, no gesture, just patience. Good. Let's remove patience. I sat in the Skylark longer than necessary, heater humming, breath fogging once before fading. Slow inhale, measured release, the kind you take before stepping into weather that doesn't care about you. Gloves first. Flex once. Leather creaks. Glove box open. Brass knuckles, not polished, not decorative, just weight. I slid them on my right hand, cold metal over bone, closed my fist. Opened it. You don't prepare like that unless you believe the other man ends arguments efficiently. I stepped out. The Delta idled half a block down, angled clean for sightlines. I crossed without hurry. 10 steps, 8, 6. The ignition cut. Door latch clicked. At 10 feet the door opened, and the car seemed smaller around him. He unfolded from the seat like something engineered tight, but built for damage. 6'6", 320. Easy. Black wool coat stretched across shoulders that didn't come from a gym. Head shaved close, jaw squared, eyes steady. Not street, not hired fear. Trained weight. He closed the door with control. No slam, no display, just presence. I let my eyes move over him once. No visible weapon. Doesn't mean none. The wind cut between us, and something old shifted in my chest. Ajax. No reaction. Anthony Jackson. Riverside High linebacker. 2 years ahead of me. We'd met under Friday lights and summer arguments that outlasted the games. He'd been a wall then. Now he was infrastructure. Rumors said he went federal. Fraud. Counterintelligence. Work that sharpens men like him instead of softening them. You still drive junk, Ajax said evenly. Voice unchanged, low, economical. Still hit hard, I replied. A corner of his mouth twitched. Memory. I stayed 10 feet out. Distance matters with mass like that. You planning to watch me all morning? I asked. Or you got something to say? He scanned the street without turning his head. Professional. You shouldn't have gone upstairs, he said. Not accusation. Advisory. Public building. You were told to use discretion. So, he was connected to the call. Interesting. I flexed my right hand once, metal pressed into palm. His eyes dropped. Of course they did. Take those off, he said calmly. Make me. The wind cut again. He didn't move, didn't posture, which told me everything. If this went physical, it would be brief, and it wouldn't favor me. I'm not here to fight you, Marty. He hadn't called me that since high school. Then why are you here? Long pause, measured. Because you're stepping into something you don't understand. Missing accountant? His eyes didn't blink. You think that's what this is? He took 1 step forward, still outside reach. You survived December, he said quietly. That was variance. I don't believe in variance. Start. I held his gaze. Who are you working for? I'm not your enemy. That wasn't denial. That depends. A truck backfired down the block. Neither of us flinched. You're being observed, he said. By you. By people who don't miss. That carried weight. And you? Another pause. You always mistook stubbornness for strategy. And you always mistook size for leverage. That almost earned a smile. Go to Coderson, he said. Alone. I'm already alone. You don't escalate. Or what? His eyes hardened slightly. Or, this stops being surveillance. There it was, the boundary. I slowly removed the brass knuckles. Didn't break eye contact. Slipped them into my pocket. Good, Ajax said. Tell whoever you report to, I replied. I don't scare easy. He stepped back to the Delta. One more thing. I waited. If Laura Vance is alive, it won't be because you're looking. He got in, door shut, engine turned. The Delta rolled away without hurry. I stood in the cold a second longer. Ajax, federal air around him, warning, not threat, which means jurisdiction, or something buried deeper. I flexed my hand again. Metal gone, weight remained. January doesn't chase, it positions. And whatever Laura Vance touched, it was big enough to park federal muscle on a curb. I got back into the Skylark. This time, when I exhaled, it wasn't controlled. Chapter 4. Case file, Vance, L. January 3rd, 2026. Everything about Ajax said. Warning. Men built like that don't idle for nostalgia. They don't drift through neighborhoods for scenery. They don't sit in black sedans unless the moment requires weight. Warning. The question was whose? I walked back to the Skylark without turning around. Didn't need to. The cold told me he was still there. Got in, closed the door slow. Brass knuckles back into the glove box. Metal kissed metal once before settling. Key turned, engine caught. Right on cue, the Delta 88 rolled past. Window down an inch. Ajax didn't smile, didn't challenge, just gave a single confirming nod. Acknowledgement. Then he was through the intersection and gone. Protection? Or containment? You don't assign federal muscle to shadow a private investigator unless something larger is already moving. And if he was hired, he wasn't cheap. I pulled into traffic. Coderson Holdings sat uptown at 5th and Maple, glass-fronted, polished, the kind of building that doesn't advertise what it actually does. Plenty of road between here and there. Plenty of time to think. Laura's apartment had been opened clean. Police knocked. Didn't enter. Tall man with keys. Black sedan. Ajax following me, but not stopping me. That part mattered. If he wanted me off the case, he would have said so. Instead, he warned me. Which meant someone else didn't want me warned. That split bothered me more than the tail. I took Maple slower than necessary. Let traffic box me in. Checked mirrors without appearing to. No Delta. Either Ajax peeled off, or someone better picked up. Laura Vance, 7 figures missing. Private audit. Targeted file removal. Federal attention. And somewhere inside that equation, my name. January isn't loud. It's deliberate. Coderson rose ahead. Steel. Glass. Controlled temperature behind tinted windows. The kind of building that assumes permanence. The kind that doesn't panic when accountants disappear. I parked across the street. Killed the engine. Sat a moment. Dots half-formed but not connecting. You don't force a pattern. You let it reveal itself. If Ajax was right, I was already inside it. I stepped out, straightened the peacoat. 5th and Maple. Uptown money. No tail visible. Which somehow felt worse. January doesn't chase. It waits for you to choose the door. And I had. Chapter 5. Case file. Vance, L. January 3rd, 2026. He approached from the left corridor. Short. Compact. White. Efficient movement. The kind of man who prefers documentation to confrontation. To my 6'2" frame, he read smaller than he probably liked. Dark hair disciplined across thinning scalp. Suit mid-tier. Stable. Not ambitious. Badge clipped square. Kyle Logan, Senior Auditing Manager. Mr. Keller, he said, extending his hand. Welcome to Coderson Holdings. Firm grip. Practiced authority. Appreciate it. His smile held a fraction too long. You're here regarding Ms. Vance. That's right. She has not reported since Monday. Coderson Holdings takes employee welfare seriously. The phrasing was clean, rehearsed, Police already stopped by, I said. They did. You didn't let them upstairs. We respect procedure. His eyes flicked briefly toward the security desk. Policy, containment. Follow me. We walked a corridor that absorbed sound. No scuffs, no imperfection. He pressed the elevator. Doors opened immediately. Lucky. Or timed. Inside, he keyed the panel. Not 3rd floor. 5th. Ms. Vance reported to you? I asked. She reported to my division. Division? Special audits. There it was. Private clients? We handle sensitive matters. Of course you do. The doors opened, and the air changed. Open floor plan, rows of cubicles, monitors glowing in quiet blue. Keyboard taps, soft and obedient. Faces lifted as we passed, then lowered. No panic. No whispers. This wasn't a company rattled by absence. This was a company adjusting. Her station is at the end, Logan said. That's when I saw him. Elliot Crane, hands clasped, watching. Not surprised, which meant I wasn't news. Logan stopped short. You may review her workspace briefly, he said, under supervision. Of course, I stepped forward. Monitor dark, chair aligned, desktop arranged with corporate symmetry. Too neat, just like her apartment. Elliot moved before Logan could frame him. Mr. Keller, he said, extending his hand. Welcome to Coderson. As if we hadn't met that morning. As if his cash wasn't sitting in my desk drawer. I took his hand, firm, measured, and felt it. Small, hard, rectangular, held in the center of my palm. Half-second longer than necessary, then released. I didn't look down, didn't pocket it, didn't shift. Gadget plastic. USB? I scanned his face instead. Clean shave, subtle aftershave. Expensive. Familiar. You don't recognize scent immediately. You store it. Then it returns. I'd caught it faintly at Laura's door, on the frame, not lingering, present. He had keys. Keys don't require height. Elliot stepped back. As you can see, he said smoothly, her desk is clean. Monitor dark, keyboard aligned, legal pad centered. She was meticulous. Too clean. I smiled lightly. I thought so. Behind us, Logan remained motionless, hands folded, observing. I kept my right hand relaxed at my side, the USB pressed against my palm. I'd like to review her audit assignments, I said. That will require formal authorization, Logan replied instantly. Rehearsed again. Of course. Elliot's eyes met mine. Expectation. Not fear. Expectation. If that's all, Logan asked. For now. Elevator ride down in silence. Lobby returned to marble and control. Should you require documentation, Logan said as we approached security. Legal will assist. Appreciate it. Veronica didn't look up as my belongings were returned. Efficient. Scripted. Outside, January light hit hard. I slowed just enough to notice the wall opposite the lobby. 12 framed photographs. Board of directors. Black frames. Gold-lettered plaques. Institutional permanence. I read them one by one. Until Rupert Hawthorne board member Coderson Holdings. The glass reflected my face over his. He wasn't dust. He was infrastructure. January doesn't resurrect ghosts. It shows you where they sit. I stepped through the doors and into the cold. Only when I reached the Skylark did I slide the USB into my coat pocket. Ajax warned me. Elliot handed me data. Hawthorne's name hung in gold on the wall. Laura Vance was missing. And this wasn't a small case to refill my bankroll anymore. It was a corridor. And I'd just walked its length, The lobby doors closed behind me with the kind of silence money buys. Glass and steel swallowed sound. Outside, January waited without expression. I didn't look back at the board. Didn't need to. Hawthorne wasn't erased. He was framed. Promoted. I crossed 5th toward the Skylark. Wind cut sideways between buildings. Noon glare bounced off chrome and exhaust. No Delta 88. No visible tail. Which meant nothing. It meant patience. Inside the car, the stale warmth held. I shut the door, sat a moment without turning the key. The USB pressed against my ribs. Small, hard, uninvited. Elliot's handshake replayed. Firm, controlled, deliberate. The slight hold. The transfer. Not panic. Choice. He wanted me to have it. Or he wanted someone to know I did. The engine turned over. I pulled into traffic without hurry. Mirrors, left, right. Nothing obvious. Men who follow for a living don't advertise. Maple thinned into older storefronts within 6 blocks. Glass gave way to brick. The city shifted from polished to honest without asking permission. The phone rang. Private line. Few people had it. Connie. I let it ring twice. 3. Answered on 4. Keller. No greeting. Just breath. Uneven. Then. Marty. Her voice wasn't polished. It wasn't composed. It was tight. What happened? A pause. I came home, she said. And something was waiting for me. The light ahead turned red. I slowed. What kind of something? A photograph. The word nearly fractured. I didn't speak. Where? On the console table, in the foyer. Placed, not mailed. Not slipped. Placed. You were out? 20 minutes. Pharmacy. And when you came back? It was there. Her breathing thinned. They were inside, Marty. I pulled to the curb and killed the engine. Traffic moved past like it had cleaner concerns. What's in the photo? Silence. Then, it's us. The interior of the car felt smaller. New Year's Eve, she said. The lobby. She didn't need to say the time. She did anyway. 12:47. Again. I stared through the windshield at nothing. I got the same one, I said. That stopped her. You did? This morning. Her breath sharpened. What does this mean? It meant retaliation without noise. It meant access. It meant surgical pressure. Have you told anyone? No. Staff? No. Attorneys? No. Her voice steadied slightly. I'm not reckless. Less than 15 days after her husband's funeral, we'd made a mistake. Drunk. Raw. Human. It hadn't felt strategic. Now, it was leverage. If the estate lawyers see that, she said carefully, they'll question everything. Yes. If the board sees it, they'll assume motive. Yes. And if the prosecution. They won't accuse, I said. They'll imply. Silence. Understanding. They'll say I aligned with you before the dust settled, she said. They won't have to say it. That's how reputations get dismantled. Not with charges, with suggestion. Marty, she said, and there was steel beneath it now. Is this Rupert? Yes, but I didn't give her the word. It's someone who doesn't want you testifying clean. Another pause. I feel watched, she whispered. You are. Honesty carries weight. What do we do? There it was. Not you. We. You don't react, I said. That's not helpful. It's necessary. A horn sounded somewhere behind me. I ignored it. If you panic, I continued, if you call attorneys in fear, If you make this look defensive, they win. Yes. Her breathing steadied. I haven't even received William's estate, she said. Nothing's cleared. Which made the implication worse. If she hadn't benefited, this was preemptive framing. Doubt planted before payout. If they try to say I had something to do with it, they won't try, I said. They'll let it grow. That's cleaner. I don't want to be alone tonight. The words weren't seductive. They were tired. I closed my eyes briefly. If someone's watching you, I said, me showing up feeds them. She didn't argue. She understood. Then what? Stay somewhere public, not your usual places. Don't use your name. That sounds extreme. It sounds careful. A pause. That night wasn't strategy, she said. I know. It wasn't conspiracy. I know. January doesn't erase mistakes. It weaponizes them. Call me if anything else appears. I will. She hesitated. If this ruins me. It won't. But January had already begun carving. The line went dead, and the silence afterward felt deliberate. I sat there 5 full seconds before turning the engine over. Same photo, same timestamp, placed inside both our homes. Not mailed, access, keys, proximity. I merged back into traffic and headed toward the office. The USB felt heavier now. Hawthorne wasn't scrambling. He was calibrating. 1247 wasn't nostalgia. It was instruction. You exposed me. Now I expose you. If he thought shame would slow me. He misunderstood something fundamental. Regret is quiet. Revenge is patient. I'm stubborn. And January had just escalated. I went into the building still hearing Connie's voice, not the fear, the calculation. 15 days after William Macklin's funeral, and we'd made a mistake that felt human. Now it looked strategic from the wrong angle. That's how narratives shift. You don't change facts, you change timing. Steam heat and old plaster filled the stairwell. My steps echoed louder than they should have. The frosted glass door waited at the end of the corridor. Marty Martin, Private Investigator, LLC. The gold lettering had begun surrendering at the edges. I unlocked it. Locked it behind me. Blinds down. Lights on. Radiator knocking like it had something to confess. I moved to the desk and opened the bottom drawer. From beneath closed case files, I pulled the older laptop. Unmarked. Reinforced casing. Acquired during a period of life where problems were measured in threat assessments instead of invoices. It didn't connect to my office network. Didn't remember passwords. Didn't gossip. I set it on the desk and opened it. Power. Low hum. Clean boot sequence. I stood a second longer than necessary, watching the screen come alive, then reached into my coat. The USB, black, unlabeled, cold, inserted. Drive recognized. One folder. No theatrics. I clicked, and for 3 seconds, I didn't breathe. Server logs, internal transfers, timestamp column that hit like impact. 1247. Repeated, clustered, layered across entries that shouldn't overlap. Cross-routing, shell dispersal, board-level authorization codes. Nothing subtle. Someone had assumed no one would look twice. The secure cell rang. Not the office line, not private, the secure line. Few people had it. I didn't check the screen, answered. Keller, a flat voice replied. You are on the line. Go, sir. Relay. Half second of silence. Then, Ajax. You don't waste time. Not a question. You always open calls with a switchboard? I asked. Temporary routing. Measured, controlled. How'd you know I plugged it in? Pause. You went straight back to your office. That's not an answer. You were predictable when challenged. That's almost nostalgic. Silence stretched. Not hostile. Calibrated. You shouldn't have opened it yet, Ajax said. You shouldn't be monitoring my habits. We're not monitoring your machine. Interesting phrasing. What do you want? Confirmation. Of? That you're not about to do something emotional. I looked at the screen again. 12:47. You think this is emotional? I think Hawthorne wants it to be. Name spoken cleanly. He's on the run. Why is he operating like he's still in a boardroom? Because relocation doesn't dissolve infrastructure. Relocate. Not hide. Relocate. You're aware of the trust transfer, he continued. Are you asking or telling? Both. The room felt smaller. You've seen it, I said. Yes. And? You're not the only one who noticed the timing. 12:47. Again. You step into this sideways, Ajax said. You damage more than yourself. Threat? Perimeter. I stood and walked toward the window, though the blind stayed down. You're warning me off. I'm warning you about escalation. Someone entered Connie's house. That stopped him. How? Placed the same photo in her foyer. Silence. Not shock. Calculation. Forced entry. No. Alarm. She stepped out 20 minutes. You're certain it wasn't staff? Yes. The air shifted on the line. That changes tempo, he said. For who? For everyone. Light leaked faintly through the blinds. You think Hawthorne's doing this personally? Ajax asked. No. Good. Wait behind that. You exposed him, Ajax continued. He's not trying to kill you. Comforting. He's trying to discredit you. Clean. Direct. And Connie. Yes. Silence again. You sleeping with her complicates optics, Ajax added. That's not your concern. It's jurisdictional. That word carried more than accusation. Her testimony matters. Your credibility matters. So does the truth. Yes. Then let me move. You move, he said evenly. He adapts. I looked at the laptop. You already have this data. Yes. And I'm still outside the circle. No. Then what am I? Long pause. Uncontrolled variable. Honest. If I find something you missed, you won't. Confidence or containment. And Laura Vance? Beat. What about her? She vanishes the same week she flags this. That's not your lane. Not denial, not confirmation. Boundary. I don't stay in lanes. You should. The radiator knocked again. The timestamps glowed on the screen. 12:47. 12:47. 12:47. You're not telling me everything. Correct. At least we're clear. Yes. Final silence. Then carefully. You are being observed by more than one party. I assumed. One wants you reactive. And the other? Wants you intact. And which are you? A breath. I'm the reason you're still talking. The line went dead. I lowered the phone. The screen hadn't changed. The data hadn't softened. Hawthorne wasn't retaliating. He was shaping perception. Connie was leverage. I was contamination. And somewhere inside those logs was motive. January doesn't rush. It tightens. And now. So was I. I leaned back in the chair and let the file sit open. The timestamps told part of it. Memory supplied the rest. Pier 14. Warehouse. Cold concrete floor. William Mackland hadn't been killed immediately. Hawthorne didn't operate on impulse. He refrigerated problems 72 hours before the official time of death. 72 hours where Mackland wasn't at board meetings, wasn't home, wasn't answering calls. 72 hours likely spent in a folding chair inside a steel warehouse. Harbor wind bleeding through cracked panes of industrial glass. Hawthorne would have given him time. Not mercy. Time. Time to reconsider $25 million. Time to retract leverage. Time to apologize for believing he'd cornered a man who designed the corners. And when William didn't retract, when pride held, 12:47 became punctuation, not impulse. Conclusion. I checked my watch. 5:07 p.m., January light already thinning. Early dark that makes cities feel compressed. Elliot Crane. He slipped me the drive. He greeted me twice like we'd never met. And he had keys to Laura Vance's apartment. The neighbor had been clear. Tall man, dark coat, black car, keys, no knock. Elliot wasn't Ajax tall, but tall enough in a hallway silhouette. More importantly, confident enough to enter without permission. I shut the laptop, removed the USB, slipped it into my coat, checked the Colt. Not dramatic. Ritual? Safety. Holstered. Pea coat back on. Blinds stayed down. Lights off. Lock engaged. The stairwell felt colder. Outside, the sky had gone slate. I drove toward Crane's address, not Coderson. If a man hands you evidence, you don't meet him where supervisors measure his pulse. You meet him where his walls talk. Traffic had thinned, street lamps humming awake. I ran the questions in sequence. Why give me the drive? Why not authorities? Why me at all? And simplest, why does he have a key to Laura Vance's apartment? Emergency protocol or controlled retrieval? The difference is motive. Crane's townhouse sat in a quieter strip. Brick front. Clean lines. Stable income. I parked one house down. Watched 30 seconds. Lights on, single silhouette moving, no second shadow. No idling vehicle. I stepped out. Knocked twice. Measured. 5 seconds. Door opened. Elliot. No surprise. Sleeves rolled. Tie loosened. "Mr. Keller," he said evenly. I wondered how long. "May I?" He stepped aside without hesitation. That told me something. Inside smelled faintly of cedar and that same expensive aftershave. Controlled space. Books arranged by height. Desk aligned with window. No clutter. "You looked at it," he said. "Yes." "And?" "You tell me." He didn't sit. Neither did I. "William Mackland miscalculated," he said carefully. "That's one word. He thought he could negotiate. He thought he could extort." Elliot didn't argue. "That wasn't my role," he said. "Your role included a key to Laura Vance's apartment." His jaw tightened a fraction. "Company emergency access." "That's not what I asked." Silence. "You were there." He didn't deny it. "Tuesday evening," he said. "After police." "Yes." "What were you retrieving?" A glance at the bookshelf. Then back. "Documents." "Specific ones." "Yes." "Why?" Laura was not authorized to escalate beyond internal channels. And she did. Yes. Escalate, not vanish. "Where is she?" "I don't know." Smooth. Too smooth. "I expect you to believe she discovered something that put her in danger," he said. "From Hawthorne. From proximity." Interesting word choice. "You're not protecting Coderson," I said. "No. You're protecting yourself." A subtle shift in his eyes. "William approached Hawthorne directly," he said. "Not the board. Not legal." "I know. You saw the proposal?" "Yes. And once that conversation happened," he continued, "there was no safe outcome. For William. For anyone near it." The room tightened. "You handed me that drive," I said. "Why?" "Because you're already involved." "That's not motive." It's honesty." Silence stretched. Outside, a car rolled past slowly. Neither of us turned. "You're being watched," Elliot said quietly. "I'm aware. Not just by Hawthorne." Again. Layers. "You're not clean," I said. "No." "Neither am I." "No." Two men orbiting the same detonation. "Why 1247?" I asked. Recognition flickered. "That's when he believes control shifted," Elliot said. "Control of what?" "Narrative." There it was. Not money. Not leverage. Story. "Laura flagged the transfer," I said. "Yes." "And someone flagged her." Fractional pause. "Yes." "Who?" He didn't answer. Which was answer. I stepped closer. "You don't give a private investigator federal-grade exposure unless you want leverage," I said. "I gave you context." "No," I said quietly. "You gave me a fuse." His jaw tightened again. "You're not the only one who wants Hawthorne contained," he said. "Contained. Perimeter? Structure." "Then here's truth," I said. "If you had keys to her apartment and she's missing, and I find out you're holding something back." He didn't step away. "Then you'll do what?" he asked calmly. I held his gaze. "I won't escalate." Beat. "But I will stop listening." That landed harder than violence. Silence settled between us. Heavy, measured, deliberate. January doesn't explode. It compresses. And we were running out of space. People don't travel far for convenience. They don't cross districts to duplicate something small. They go where laziness allows. Frank's Hardware sat 4 blocks off 5th. Union Street. Close enough to Coterson that a man could step out, copy a key, and return before his coffee cooled. If Laura's door had been opened clean, and Crane had access, and someone wanted entry without paperwork, they didn't go across town. They went to Union. I drove back toward the business district. January sky, now full slate. Sodium lamps buzzing awake over sidewalks already thinning. Frank's Hardware was wedged between a laundromat and a deli that smelled like boiled onions and old grease. Red paint faded in patches. Snow shovels still advertised in the window from a winter long gone. Convenience over elegance. I parked across the street and watched. 2 customers, 1 older man at the counter. Bell rang when I stepped in. The place smelled like metal filings and rubber mats. Frank stood behind the counter, mid-60s, thick glasses. Mustache that suggested permanence, not fashion. "Evening," he said. "Evening." I wandered first. Pegboards, tool hooks, key blanks lined in quiet rows, standard residential. Nothing exotic. I approached without urgency. "Quick question. Depends how quick. Anyone in here Tuesday evening copying apartment keys?" He squinted. "That's not much. Early 30s. Clean cut. Dark coat. Corporate." He scratched his chin. "People don't dress corporate in here much." "True. After 6. He paused. Memory turning. "Tuesday," he said slowly. "Yeah. Had one." "Apartment key?" "Standard schlug. 2 copies." "2. He say why?" "No." "Cash?" "Card." "Company?" He leaned back slightly. "You a cop?" "No." "Then I don't share payment details." "Fair." "Missing person," I said. "Apartment was accessed." That shifted him. He wasn't nervous, Frank said. Just efficient. "Alone?" "Yes." "Car?" Hesitation. "Black sedan," he said. "Clean." "Delta." Or something close enough. "Tall?" "Yeah. Taller than you." That ruled Crane out. That leaned somewhere else. Wait while you cut them? Yes. No paperwork? No. Cameras? He pointed up. Single dome above the register. How long you keep footage? 3 days. Today was Thursday. Tuesday was alive. Mind pulling 6 o'clock? He studied me. Missing person? Yes. That was still true. He disappeared into the back. Fluorescence hummed overhead. If it wasn't Crane, then Crane entering Laura's apartment wasn't first entry. It was retrieval. Frank returned. Got him. He turned the monitor. Grainy. Time stamped Tuesday, 6:18 p.m. Bell rings. Door opens. And the frame fills. 6'6", broad. Dark coat, head shaved close. Ajax. Or someone built in the same mold. He moved to the counter without hesitation. Selected blank. 2 cuts. Card swipe. Out in under 3 minutes. Through the window behind him. Black sedan. Long body. Spoked rims. Delta 88. I exhaled slowly. Print that still? Frank hesitated. You said missing person. Yes. Printer hummed. Paper slid out in grayscale. I folded it once and slipped it into my coat. You didn't see it from me, he said. Never did. I stepped back into January. Union Street felt narrower now. Ajax copied keys Tuesday evening. Police knocked that morning. Neighbor saw tall man with keys enter that night. Crane entered later, which meant Ajax was first. Crane was second. Laura vanished somewhere inside that sequence, or before it. I stood there and let it settle. Ajax warned me about escalation. Ajax said I wasn't in the right lane. Ajax said multiple parties were watching. And Ajax had keys. This wasn't simple retaliation. This was overlap. Federal perimeter intersecting corporate containment, intersecting Hawthorne's revenge. If Ajax copied keys, he wasn't observing. He was adjusting the board. The question wasn't whether Laura was dead. The question was, who moved her first? I checked my watch. 6:02 p.m. January fully dark. Time to call Ajax. Not to accuse. To measure if he wants me intact. He needs to explain why he entered that apartment before anyone else, and why he didn't tell me. The cold had sharpened. Union Street hummed under sodium lights, but the sidewalks were thinning fast. January closes things early. People retreat when the dark takes over. I slid into the Skylark and shut the door. The interior felt smaller. I pulled the folded still from my coat and looked at it again. Grainy, broad shoulders, dark coat, keys. Ajax, or someone built to resemble him. I folded it once more and tucked it into the glove compartment. Then I reached for the secure phone. Not the public line, not the office number, the one that doesn't route cleanly, the one that doesn't show up on billing summaries. I scrolled to the last incoming number. Redial, 1 ring. Glass exploded. Not cracked, not fractured. Erased. The driver's side window disintegrated inward in a violent spray of safety shards. The sound didn't register as gunfire. It registered as subtraction. Something removed from the air. Then, impact. Right side of my skull. White light detonated behind my eyes. The phone flew from my hand. My head snapped into the steering column. Second strike. Metal. Compact. Precise. No wild swing. No wasted force. My ears filled with a high, distant whine. Through the fractured frame of the window, I saw a silhouette. Large. Deliberate. No shouting. No rush. A gloved hand reached inside. The glove box snapped open. I tried to move. My arm ignored me. The world narrowed. Third impact. Not to the head, to the door. The lock. Metal screamed once. The door swung open. Cold air poured in. Boots on pavement. Heavy, Measured. I tasted copper. My vision tunneled. The silhouette leaned in again. Professional. A hand slipped into my coat, removed something small. Light. The USB. I tried to pull a name through the fog. Ajax, Hawthorne, Crane. The shape didn't speak, didn't hesitate. Withdrew. Door closed, not slammed. Closed. Footsteps receded. Car door, engine ignition. Low, powerful, fading. Somewhere near my feet, the secure phone still hummed. The line hadn't disconnected. And through the static, Ajax's voice. Marty? Distant. Controlled. Marty, answer me. Then, nothing. Sound returned before sight. Muted voices. Fabric shifting. Radio crackle. Then light. Sharp, intrusive. I winced. Easy, a voice said. Professional. I tried to sit up. A firm hand pressed my shoulder. Don't. Vision cleared in fragments. Dark sky, street lamps, Union Street, still in the skylark. Driver's side window gone. Door open. Cold pouring in. A medic in dark, tactical outerwear leaned over me. Trauma kit open across the passenger seat. No panic. Efficient hands. Track me, he said. I did. Good. He checked behind my ear, ran fingers across my scalp. Laceration. Not deep. Likely concussion. Another voice nearby. Sharper. Command tone. Vitals? Stable. Elevated BP. He's coming around. Boots shifted. SUV hazard lights flashed across storefront glass. 2 dark vehicles angled across the street. Plainclothes posture. Federal posture. A familiar silhouette stood just outside the door. Broad shoulders. Still. Ajax. He stepped closer but didn't crowd. Stay horizontal, he said. I'm fine. I wasn't. You're not. The medic tightened gauze at the back of my head. You took 2 clean strikes, he said. They weren't trying to fracture. I noticed. Where's the phone? I asked. Secure line disconnected, someone said behind Ajax, which meant they'd cut it or let it drop. The USB, I said. Ajax's jaw tightened. Gone. They didn't search the car, I said slowly. No. They didn't take my wallet. No. They didn't finish it. No. I looked at him. They didn't want to kill me. No. Why? Silence. Measured. They were sending a message. Flat. Assessment. Not sympathy. Glass. Controlled blows. Targeted retrieval. Clean exit. Not street muscle, not improvisation. They knew I had it. Yes. They knew when I plugged it in. Yes. So either they were watching Coderson. Yes. Or watching me. Silence. I looked at the street. Union felt compressed now. You copied the keys, I said. Yes. Why? Because we needed access. Before or after she disappeared. Pause. Before. That tightened something. You moved her. He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Laura flags discrepancy. Keys copied. Entry made. USB leaves Coderson. USB handed to me. USB retrieved by force. Layered containment. You let me walk into it. No. You let me hold evidence. Yes. That's the same thing. No. In his world, those weren't equal. They wanted it back, I said. Yes. Which means it mattered. Yes. And now they know I saw it. Yes. January air poured through the broken window. Am I in danger? I asked. Yes. No padding. For how long? Until this resolves. That's not a timeline. No. The medic closed his kit. You're clear for now, he said. But don't drive alone. Ajax answered for him. He's not. I pushed myself upright. The world tilted, then steadied. Blood had dried along my collar. Copper lingered. You can't freelance this anymore, Ajax said. I wasn't freelancing. You were unpredictable. And now? Now you're involved. That word again. Involved. I reached down and picked up the secure phone. Screen cracked. Functional. They took the USB, I said. Yes. But they didn't erase memory. Ajax studied me. What did you see? He asked. I held his gaze. Enough. Silence. Longer this time. The glass shattered. The message delivered. But they hadn't broken resolve. I closed the Skylark door gently. They wanted to scare me, I said. Yes. I looked at the blood drying on my knuckles. They picked the wrong hour. January doesn't whisper. It escalates. And so do I. Chapter 6. Case file. Vance, L. January 3rd, 2026. The Delta 88 waited at the curb like it had never left. Blacked out trim, clean lines, tinted windows dark enough to hold secrets. A faint blue glow from aftermarket LEDs traced the footwells, just enough to see without being seen. I walked around the front and slid into the passenger side. Dark leather. Cold. The interior carried the mixed scent of Armor All and black and mild cigars. Maintenance and habit. Order and vice. Ajax settled behind the wheel without ceremony. One turn of the key. The engine caught immediately, low, controlled. Not loud enough to announce itself. Strong enough to move weight without strain. He adjusted nothing. Didn't check mirrors theatrically. Didn't comment on the blood drying at the edge of my collar. I'll have your car towed to the station, he said evenly. We'll replace the driver's side window. Not a question. A decision already executed. I looked out through the tinted glass at Union Street sliding past. Generous, I said. Practical. The Delta pulled away from the curb with quiet authority. No rush, no sudden acceleration, just motion. Right now, Ajax continued, eyes forward. We're partners. The words sat between us like something neither of us wanted to claim, like it or not. I don't remember signing anything, I said. You don't have to. Streetlights reflected across the hood in long orange streaks. His hands rested steady at 10 and 2. No tension, no excess movement. I'll stay with you overnight, he said. At your office. That's supposed to make me feel safer? It's supposed to make you alive in the morning. That was honest. We drove in silence for a few blocks. The hum of the engine filled the space between us. Leather creaked softly when he shifted gears. Outside, the city had gone quiet in that particular January way. Not asleep, just withdrawn. You were close, I said finally. Yes? Too close. I was tracking escalation. By letting me get hit? His jaw tightened a fraction. They weren't there to kill you, he said. If they were, you wouldn't be in this car. I watched the street roll by. They knew exactly what they wanted, I said. Yes. The USB. Yes. And they knew when I plugged it in. Yes. That word again. Clean. Unemotional. So either they're inside Coterson's network, I said, or they're inside yours. Silence. Not denial. He turned left without signaling theatrically. No one around to witness it anyway. You saw enough before they took it? He asked. Enough. How much is enough? Enough to know 1247 isn't decorative. That got a glance from him. Transfers clustered around that minute, I continued. Layered, routed, approved. Yes. You already knew. Yes. And you still let me hold it. I needed to know if they'd react. I turned toward him. So I was bait. No. That's what bait sounds like. You were confirmation. That's worse. He didn't argue. The Delta's cabin felt warmer now, or maybe the concussion was settling differently. You copied the keys Tuesday at 6:18, I said quietly. His hands didn't shift on the wheel. Yes. You went in before Crane. Yes. You moved her. He exhaled once through his nose. Laura Vance was not safe in that apartment. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. We stopped at a light. Red washed across the windshield. Is she alive? I asked. Yes. Immediate. No pause. That mattered. Where? Secure. You're secure? Yes. I studied his profile in the glow of the light. You extracted her? Yes. Before Hawthorne could? Yes. And you didn't tell me. You weren't cleared. The light turned green. Cleared, I repeated. You were still a variable. Uncontrolled, I said. Yes. The Delta rolled forward. Crane knows, I asked. He knows enough. And Hawthorne? He knows something moved. That's why they hit me. Yes. They wanted the drive back. Yes. They didn't search the car. They didn't need to, because they were certain. Yes. The city blocks thinned toward my office. Older brick, dark windows, radiator heat leaking faintly into the cold. Right now, Ajax said again, quieter this time. We compare notes. And then what? Then we decide who tightens first. I leaned my head back against the leather. The concussion pulsed behind my eyes, but the fog had thinned. You said one party wants me reactive, I said. The other wants me intact. Yes. And you? He pulled the Delta to the curb outside my building and shifted into park. I want this contained. Contained, I repeated. Yes. Not exposed? That depends. On? Whether exposure breaks infrastructure or builds a martyr. I opened the passenger door and cold air rushed in. He killed the engine. Silence settled. For the record, I said before stepping out, I don't like partners. I don't either, he replied. We walked toward the entrance together. January had escalated. So had the board. And whether I liked it, I wasn't playing alone anymore. We stepped out of the Delta and the cold hit clean. Damp wind cut sideways across the sidewalk, dragging the scent of snow and exhaust with it. January doesn't howl. It slides in under collars and stays there. The office building stood ahead in silhouette, dark, still. Then, light. Not steady, not interior. Flashlights. Third floor. Right side. My windows. Two beams moving slow and methodical across the blinds. Not random. Searching. I didn't speak, just slipped the gloves back on. Drew the Colt from inside my peacoat. The weight settled into my hand like it had always been there. Beside me, Ajax reached into his coat and produced something that didn't belong in a city block. Blacked out steel. Smith & Wesson .357. Barrel thick. Frame heavy. The kind of revolver that doesn't negotiate. The engraving was large enough to catch the sodium light. I let the words slip out under my breath. Jesus Christ, Ajax. A ripple of a smile crossed his face. I've always preferred clarity, he said quietly. He scanned the building once, head barely moving. I'll take the back entrance, he added. Fire escape side. No one drops without passing me. I nodded. No countdown. No theatrical whisper. We moved. The front door gave under my key. Unlocked. That was the first mistake. I hadn't left it that way. I eased it open. No alarm, no hurried footsteps. Just the hollow sound of the stairwell breathing. I moved up the steps, slow. Colt angled low, safety off. Third floor landing. The light from inside my office pulsed once more across the hallway wall. 2 silhouettes inside. One near the desk, one at the file cabinet. Not rushed. Systematic. They weren't here to burn the place. They were here to search. I stepped into the corridor. Floorboard creak betrayed me half a second before the closer silhouette turned. The beam of a flashlight snapped toward the door. Then the first shot came. Not from me. Muzzle flash tore the dark inside my office. Plaster exploded from the doorframe inches from my head. I dropped to one knee and fired twice through the open doorway. Controlled. Center mass height. One of the silhouettes staggered sideways. The second shot from inside came wild, chewing into the radiator and sending steam hissing into the room. I pivoted left and rolled against the hallway wall. Another round cracked past my shoulder. They weren't suppressing. They were extracting. I moved low and fast into the office. Desk overturned. Papers scattered. One of the men lunged for the window. Fire escape. Of course! I fired once more. Glass shattered outward this time. The man at the file cabinet raised his weapon again. I saw it clear in the muzzle flash. Compact, black, suppressed. I squeezed. The Colt barked loud in the small room. His shoulder snapped back. He dropped behind the cabinet. Not dead, not clean, but hurt. The second silhouette was already through the broken window, boots hitting the metal grate outside. Gunfire from the alley answered. Not mine. Ajax's. The .357 didn't crack. It detonated. The sound rolled through the stairwell like structural failure. I moved toward the window, keeping low. Another flash from below. Another concussion from the .357. Then shouting. Not Ajax. One of them. Panicked now. Boots clanged down the fire escape. Metal rattled under weight. I reached the window and leaned just enough to see. 2 figures descending. One limping. Ajax stood at the base of the fire escape, one arm extended, revolver steady. He fired once more. The muzzle flash lit the alley bright orange. One of the men dropped from the ladder early, hitting pavement hard, and scrambling toward a black SUV idling half a block down. The second figure shoved him forward and dove in after. The SUV peeled out before Ajax could line up again. He didn't chase. He stepped back. Measured. Let them go. I pulled myself through the broken window and onto the fire escape. Cold metal under my boots. January wind biting through the tear in my coat. We descended together. No words. At the bottom, Ajax kept the revolver up for 3 more seconds. Scanning. Listening. The SUV was gone. Alley empty, except for drifting exhaust and one dropped flashlight still rolling in slow circles across the concrete. I holstered the Colt. Steam from my office radiator drifted out the broken window above us, like breath. They weren't after you, Ajax said. No, I replied. They were after whatever you didn't already lose. Yes, he glanced up at the 3rd floor window. You memorize your files? Enough. He nodded once. One of the dropped men had left something behind. A smear of blood across the alley brick. Not heavy, but real. Ajax bent, touched it with a gloved finger. Fresh. Good, he said quietly. Good. They bleed. I looked back up at my shattered window. Desk overturned. Files scattered. Radiator hissing. They escalated, I said. Yes. And they're not done. No. The damp wind rolled through the alley again. January doesn't bluff. It commits. Ajax holstered the .357 slowly. We're not staying here, he said. Agreed. He looked at me once. You ready to stop being reactive? I flexed my hand around the Colt. I was ready an hour ago. Above us, the third-floor office flickered once as something shorted near the radiator. Then the light went out. And for the first time that night, we weren't being watched. We were being measured. And that meant the next move was ours. Chapter 7. Case file. Vance. L. January 3rd, 2026. If Coderson Holdings sat under Hawthorne Development Group, and Harborfront Logistics, LLC, sat there too. Then the board wasn't fragmented. It was vertical. Money at the top, compliance beneath, transport at the bottom. One umbrella. One signature. One clock that struck at 12:47. I stood in the alley, steam rising from the shattered office window above, and let the structure arrange itself in my head. Coderson audits internal flow. Harborfront moves physical assets. Hawthorne signs off on permanence. William Mackland flags a $25 million irregularity. Laura Vance flags a 7-figure routing anomaly. Both threads intersect. Both stall, both disappear. Not chaos, architecture. Someone knew I kept copies. Not everything, but enough. Doc manifests, transfer proposals, the early Mackland drafts before legal scrubbed them clean. Enough to suggest motive. And tonight, 2 men climbed 3 flights of stairs to retrieve something that wasn't there. They weren't guessing. They were acting on certainty. Which meant my office wasn't breached because of the USB. It was breached because of what they believed I already had. And somewhere inside that architecture was Connie. She'd said she didn't want to be alone tonight. Not seduction, not nostalgia, positioning. She knew something. Or someone told her something, or she had been told to say it. I didn't share that with Ajax, not yet. He stood a few feet away, scanning the alley, posture loose but ready. The .357 back in its holster, coat pulled tight against the cold. You thinking? He asked. Always. About what? Structure, I said. He didn't press. Good. Because the clearer the picture became, the less I liked where the lines pointed. Coderson under Hawthorne. Harborfront under Hawthorne. Logistics, audits, capital movement. Physical control. You don't build that kind of umbrella unless you plan to weather storms you create. Mackland tried to leverage the umbrella. Laura tried to trace it. And now someone believed I had a copy of the ribs. The concussion pulsed faintly behind my eyes, but the logic was sharp. Someone knew about my files. Someone knew about the USB. Someone knew Connie didn't want to be alone tonight. Those weren't coincidences. They were pressure points. Ajax stepped closer. We need to relocate, he said. Yes. You staying at the office is done. I know. You got somewhere else? I looked up once more at the broken third-floor window. Snowlight caught the jagged glass. Somebody had planned tonight carefully. Too carefully. And if Coderson and Harborfront were tied at the top, then whoever escalated didn't need panic. They needed silence. And isolation. I've got somewhere, I said finally. Ajax watched me carefully. You're not telling me something. That's not new. He didn't smile. You thinking about Mackland's widow? I met his eyes. Why would you assume that? Because she's leverage, and you're human. There it was. He already understood the angle. I'm thinking about the umbrella, I said instead. And how many ribs it has. The wind pushed down the alley again, colder now. Ajax nodded once. We move now, he said. Yes. As we stepped toward the street, I kept the last piece to myself. Connie didn't want to be alone tonight, but neither did someone else. And if the picture forming in my head was right, she wasn't asking for comfort. She was asking for alignment. January wasn't just tightening, it was choosing. "Drop me off at Jerry's," I said. Ajax didn't look over. "You hungry?" he asked. "Or thinking?" "Both." He considered that a second longer than necessary. "I'll make my way from there," I added. "You don't need to babysit a diner." The corner of his jaw shifted. "That's not what I'm doing." "No," I said. "You're containing." He didn't argue. The Delta rolled through the next light and turned south. Snow along the curbs had gone gray with city grit. Storefronts thinned into the older blocks where neon fought the dark. Jerry's diner came into view like it always did. Defiant. Low brick rectangle. Chrome trim. Red and blue neon buzzing in the front window. Jerry's flickering slightly over the door. The place hadn't changed in 20 years. Grease and coffee are stronger preservatives than time. Ajax pulled to the curb, but didn't kill the engine. Through the window, I could see 3 booths occupied. A trucker hunched over a plate. A couple arguing softly over pie. Counter stools half empty. Safe enough. "You don't walk out the front and straight into something," Ajax said evenly. "You sit where you can see both exits." "Already planned on it." "You call if anything shifts." "I don't scare easy." "I'm not worried about you being scared." I opened the door and cold air rushed in. "What are you worried about?" I asked. "That you start moving pieces without telling me." I paused halfway out. "That depends," I said. "On?" "Whether you're moving them with me." We held that for a second. No hostility, just perimeter lines. "I'll have a unit 2 blocks out," he said. "I figured." I stepped onto the sidewalk and shut the door. The Delta idled another second before easing back into traffic and disappearing down Monroe. I stood there in the January cold for a moment, watching the exhaust fade. Then I pushed through the diner door. The bell chimed overhead. Warmth hit first, then coffee, then fryer oil. The fluorescent lights were too bright for a concussion, but I didn't let that show. "Evening, Marty," Linda called from behind the counter without looking up from the pot she was refilling. "Evening." "You look like hell." "New winter look," she snorted softly. "Booth or counter?" "Booth." "Back corner." She nodded. Didn't ask about the dried blood near my collar. Linda had seen enough men walk in with worse. I slid into the rear booth with my back to the wall and a clear line of sight to both the front door and the kitchen swing door. Coffee arrived before I had to ask. Black. Strong. I wrapped my hands around the mug and let the heat settle into my fingers. Coderson under Hawthorne. Harborfront under Hawthorne. Audit and logistics under one roof. Keys copied. Laura extracted. USB retrieved. Office searched. Connie asking not to be alone, not fear. Alignment. If Hawthorne believed narrative control shifted at 12:47, then tonight wasn't about evidence. It was about positioning. Linda set a plate in front of me. Eggs, toast, something resembling bacon. "You want the usual pie later?" she asked. "Maybe." She studied my face a second longer. "You need anything else?" "Just the coffee." She nodded and moved away. I took a slow sip. Bitter. Grounding. Through the window, headlights passed in steady rhythm. No delta. No obvious tail. That didn't mean absence. It meant patience. I checked my watch. 7:11 p.m. Enough time. If someone knew I had Macklin's copies, and someone knew Connie didn't want to be alone. Then there was only one place the lines converged tonight. I finished the coffee in 3 measured swallows. January doesn't just tighten, it tests loyalty. And before this night end, I intended to see who was asking for mine. I let the coffee settle and pulled the secure phone from my coat. Connie answered after 4 rings. Her voice was soft. Too soft, like she'd just woken up. "Marty." I glanced at my watch again. 7:11 p.m. Early. Too early. Where are you staying? I asked. A small pause. I thought you said meeting tonight was a bad idea. Her tone wasn't offended. It was careful. We need to meet, I said. Another beat of silence. I'm at home, she replied. That tightened something. At the house? I asked. Yes. You checked into a hotel. No. You told me you wouldn't be alone. I'm not, she said quickly. Then, slower. I mean, staff is here. Staff, not specific. The diner's fluorescent lights hummed above me. A fork scraped against porcelain 2 booths over. Connie, I said evenly. Did anyone come by after the photograph? No. Too fast. You sure? Yes. I let the silence sit. Why are you asking like that? She said. Because you sound like you're lying down. I am. At 7. She gave a soft exhale that might have been a laugh. It's been a long few weeks. That part was true, but exhaustion doesn't dull edges that much. Put someone on the phone, I said. What? Anyone. Staff. Security. Housekeeper. That's unnecessary. Connie. Her breath shifted slightly. You're scaring me, she said quietly. I'm trying not to. Another pause. Then, hold on! Fabric rustled. A door clicked faintly somewhere in the background. Not large room acoustics. Not the Macland foyer. Closer. Compressed. She came back on the line. I'm fine, she said. You don't need to rush over. That wasn't what I'd said. Unlock the front door, I told her. What? Right now. Silence. Then, it's already unlocked. That hit wrong. Connie Macland doesn't leave doors unlocked 15 days after burying a husband. Where are you really? I asked. A longer pause this time. I could hear faint ambient noise behind her. Not a grand foyer. Not marble echo. HVAC hum. Generic. Hotel. Connie? I didn't want to use my name, she said finally. Good. Where? Harborview Suites. Of course. 2 blocks from Harborfront Logistics. Umbrella rib. Room? 612. I stood up from the booth, left cash under the mug. You said meeting was a bad idea, she said, tension creeping into her voice. It was, I replied. And now? Now it's necessary. Why? Because Coderson sits under Hawthorne. Because Harborfront sits under Hawthorne. Because you're sitting in a hotel that overlooks both. Because someone copied keys Tuesday. Because someone shattered my window 30 minutes ago. Because this isn't about fear, it's about positioning. I'll explain when I see you, I said. There was a hesitation in her breathing. Marty? Yes. If you come here. Yes. It won't look good. I stepped toward the diner door. It already doesn't, I said. The bell chimed as I pushed outside into the January air. Her voice followed me through the line. Are you alone? I scanned the street. Headlights, passing cars. Nothing obvious. No, I said. And I didn't elaborate, because whether she knew it or not. Tonight wasn't about comfort. It was about who moved first. Chapter 8. Case file. Vance, L. January 3rd, 2026. The Harborview Suites rose above 5th like it believed in discretion. Glass frontage. Polished brass doors. Lobby lights warm enough to suggest safety without promising it. Across the street, the dark geometry of Harborfront Logistics cut into the sky. Cranes frozen in silhouette over black water. I stepped inside and felt the shift immediately. Too quiet. Not empty. Curated. A man in a tailored charcoal coat stood near the elevators, reading nothing on his phone. Another leaned against the far column near the bar entrance, posture loose, but eyes too alert for leisure. Not thugs. Corporate perimeter. The front desk clerk smiled too evenly when I crossed the marble floor. "Evening, sir." "Evening." No one asked my name. That told me enough. The elevator doors opened before I pressed the button. 6th floor. Room 612. The hallway carpet swallowed sound. Soft lighting. No housekeeping carts. No background noise. Room 612's door was slightly ajar. I didn't knock. Connie stood just inside, still in the same black sweater she'd worn to William's memorial luncheon. Hair loose, eyes tired, not sedated. "You came," she said. "You sounded wrong." She looked past me into the hall. "You shouldn't have." "Probably." The room smelled faintly of hotel detergent and something sharper beneath it. Tension. "Did anyone tell you I was coming?" I asked. Her hesitation was brief. "Yes." "Who?" "A man downstairs. Said it would be safer if you and I spoke tonight." "Of course he did." "Did he give a name?" "No." "Description?" She swallowed. "Polite." That fit too many men. I stepped farther into the room and closed the door behind me. Through the far window, the dock stretched below in iron lines and sodium glow. "You're being observed," I said. I assumed. Not by me. Her jaw tightened slightly. "Is it Rupert?" "Yes." The name landed differently now. Not ghost, not dust. Structure. A soft knock sounded at the door behind me, measured, not forceful. Connie's eyes widened a fraction. I didn't invite anyone else. I crossed the room and opened the door before the second knock landed. Rupert Hawthorne stood in the hallway, like he'd stepped out of a board meeting instead of a manhunt. Dark overcoat, cashmere scarf, silver at his temples precise, not accidental. No weapon visible. No raised voice. Just calm. "Mr. Keller," he said. His voice was smooth, unhurried, mildly amused. "You're out past visiting hours," I replied. He smiled faintly. "I find January clarifying." He stepped inside without asking and closed the door himself. 2 men remained in the hallway, not entering, not needed. Connie moved back toward the window instinctively. Rupert's eyes flicked to her once, not with affection, with assessment. "You've caused considerable movement," he said to me. "It would have been simpler if you'd left the docs alone. You should have left the accountant alone." "Laura was ambitious," he said. "Ambition without discretion is dangerous." She flagged a discrepancy. She misunderstood context. "You mean theft." He tilted his head slightly. "I mean, hierarchy." Silence stretched. He walked to the window and looked down at Harborfront. "You see those cranes?" he asked quietly. "They don't move because someone shouts. They move because someone authorizes." "You authorized William's death?" He didn't flinch. William miscalculated. 72 hours to reconsider. Hawthorne's eyes returned to me. "You've done your homework." "Not enough." He studied me for a long moment. "You were more patient than I expected." That wasn't anger. It was evaluation. "You mistake patience for fear," I said. A faint smile. "No, I mistake pride for vulnerability." Connie shifted behind me. "You put a photograph in my home," she said. Hawthorne didn't look at her. "I placed perspective," he corrected. "You're trying to discredit me." "I'm preserving order." He adjusted his cuffs once, as if the conversation had reached its natural conclusion. Then he stepped into the hallway. No hurry, no raised voice. Just control. The elevator doors closed with a soft, mechanical hush. No sirens, no cuffs, no federal containment. Just carpet and climate control, and the faint hum of wealth pretending it was untouchable. I stood at the window a moment longer, watching Harborfront's cranes cut into the black water. He hadn't come to be arrested. He'd come to choose the ground. And if Rupert Hawthorne wanted the docks, he was going to get them. Chapter 9. Case File. Vance, L. January 3rd, 2026. Linda topped off the coffee without asking. The neon in Jerry's buzzed like it had something to confess. Outside, 5th Street carried on pretending the night was ordinary. It wasn't. I stepped into the cold and called Connie. "You're still at Jerry's?" she asked. "Yes." A pause. "I'll come get you." That's not subtle. You think subtle matters now? Fair. I went back inside, ate 2 bites of apple pie I didn't taste, and left cash under the mug. The white convertible announced itself before it reached the curb. Low growl, clean lines, top down despite January. The whole city knew that car. Old money in motion. Grief wearing gloss. I slid into the passenger seat. "You shouldn't have brought that," I said. "You told me not to be alone." I meant anonymous. "I'm done hiding." She pulled away from the curb, half a block back, reflected in a dark storefront window. Blacked out Delta 88. Lights off. Ajax. He didn't follow, not yet. He was waiting to see which direction I chose. I chose the water. 2 headlights settled behind us 3 turns later, too steady for coincidence. Dark sedan, no polish, no hesitation. As we angled toward Harborfront, it angled too. "We've got company," I said. "Police?" "No." The sedan closed the distance. Streetlight caught the driver's profile. Tall. Broad. Scar cutting down his jaw like unfinished surgery. Same man from Coderson. Passenger seat held someone new. Younger. Lean. Watching. "Hotel?" Connie asked. "No." "Where?" "They want space." Ahead, dock access lanes peeled toward container stacks and cold steel. "Can you drive?" A faint smile. "Better than William." Dock Road. She didn't hesitate. The convertible surged. The sedan reacted instantly. Prepared. The city lights thinned behind us. Industrial shadow took over. The sedan gained. Close enough now that Scar's eyes were visible in the mirror. No anger, just work. Behind us, farther back, headlights ignited. Delta 88. Ajax had decided. The road narrowed. Potholes, cracked pavement. Container walls hemming us in. The sedan pulled alongside briefly. Passenger leaned out. Radio in hand. Not improvising. Coordinating. They dropped back, then surged. Clipping attempt. Connie corrected smoothly. We cut into a narrower service lane between stacked containers. Wind hit harder now. The docks opened ahead. Water to the right, steel to the left, nowhere comfortable. The sedan accelerated again, preparing to pin. The rear tire exploded, violent, immediate. The back end fishtailed. Sparks screamed from metal on pavement. "Kill it," I said. She did. The sedan didn't slow. Doors flew open. They were out before the engine finished dying. Tall, deliberate, hurting. "Run," I told her. She ran, boots striking dock concrete, wind tearing through chains and mast lines. Ahead. Pier 14. Warehouse silhouette. Cracked panes. Cold floor. 72 hours. This wasn't random. It was ritual. "Left," I barked. Scar anticipated. His partner cut wide to split us. Connie veered toward the warehouse. I grabbed her arm. "Inside and we're boxed." Boots thundered behind us. I cut toward forklifts. "Separate?" She hesitated. "Go." She broke right. I broke left. Scar stayed on me. Of course he did. I swung a loose chain across his forearm. Metal cracked. He absorbed it. Advanced. I drove low into his midsection. He barely shifted. His hand caught my coat and twisted. He shoved me back into steel hard enough to blur vision. "You should have stayed at the diner," he said calmly. I drove a knee up. Connected. He swung, missed. Metal rang behind me. Connie screamed. Short. Cut off. Restrained. I broke toward the sound. Scar closed. Grabbed. Reverse throw. Concrete stole all the air from my lungs. White noise. Cold. No oxygen. I forced myself up. He rose with me. I drove a full right uppercut straight through the Scar. Bone to brass. His eyes hyper-dilated. Legs softened. He dropped to one knee. I staggered back and saw it. Dark gray Bentley. Engine idling. Untouched by Doc grime. Hawthorne. Watching. The Bentley door opened. He stepped out like the Docs were hosting him. Cashmere coat. Measured breath. "You're persistent," he said. "You're sloppy." A faint smile. He stepped back toward the warehouse. Not retreat. Invitation. I followed. Inside, sound folded in on itself. Steel beams. Echo. Cold air. He moved deeper between crate rows. He wasn't fleeing. He was positioning. To the right. Movement. Scar's partner cut in. Weapon low. Before he could raise it. Gunshot. Concrete sparked. "Drop it!" Ajax's voice boomed. The partner charged instead. Ajax met him clean. No theatrics. Elbow to sternum. Palm strike to jaw hinge. Rotation. Trap. Snap. Face first to concrete. Knee on spine. Cuffs out. Done. Federal boots poured into the warehouse. Containment tightening. Too late for clean exits. I kept moving. Hawthorne turned the next aisle. I cut him off. 10 feet between us. Cold breath visible. "You don't look impressed," he said. "I'm not." "You think you've cornered me. You walked me here." He lunged, not skilled, desperate. I stepped offline. Let him overcommit. Pivoted, hooked his arm, drove him down. Concrete erased pedigree. I slid into side control, pinned his wrist. He bucked. Weak. "You're going to regret humiliating me," he said quietly. "You refrigerated a man for 72 hours, I replied. "I'm past regret." Footsteps approached, measured. Ajax. He stopped just outside reach. "Rupert Hawthorne," he said evenly. "You are under arrest." For the first time, Hawthorne's breathing changed. Not fear, recognition. Cuffs closed around tailored wrists. Steel. Final. He rose, composed. "You think prison ends influence?" he asked calmly. "It ends tonight," Ajax replied. As they led him toward the floodlit doorway, he glanced back at me. Not angry, not defeated, appraising. "This isn't over, Mr. Keller." He wasn't wrong. Pier 14 had closed a circle. But men like Hawthorne don't disappear. They adapt. And January? January never forgets. Outro. Case file. Vance. L. January 3rd, 2026. The cold hit different once the adrenaline drained. Cleaner. Sharper. Honest. I stepped away from the floodlights and the cluster of federal jackets and reached into my coat. The lucky pack was bent from the fight, but intact. I tapped one loose and held the pack toward Ajax. He hesitated half a second, then took one. Didn't say anything about it. Didn't pretend he didn't smoke. I struck a match against the brick wall beside the loading door. Flame bloomed orange in the dark. Lit mine first, then leaned in and lit his. The sulfur burned out between my fingers and fell to the concrete. Across the street, beyond the dock road, the electric sign on the 5th /3rd bank glowed sterile and indifferent. 12:47 a.m., right on time. We both drew deep. Let the smoke settle where the violence had been. Ajax finally cut his eyes toward me. Why 12:47? I let the smoke drift from my lungs slow and even. I'll let Laura Vance explain it to you in pretrial. He laughed once. Low. Not mocking. You don't know, do you? I tilted my head slightly. Enlighten me. Ajax took another drag and watched the red tip flare. 12:47 wasn't when Macklin died? I didn't interrupt. It was when control shifted, he continued. Laura flagged the internal override at 12:47 a.m. Not the transfer. The override. Override of what? Board authorization. That tightened something in my chest. Hawthorne didn't just move money, Ajax said. He forced a time-locked governance protocol, manual key entry, dual authentication. One of the keys wasn't his. I looked at him fully now. Whose was it? Ajax let the smoke hang between us. Macklin's. Wind moved across the dock, carrying the smell of harbor brine and burned powder. He didn't retract, I said quietly. No. He didn't cooperate. No. Ajax flicked ash onto the concrete. At 12:47, Laura documented that Macklin's credentials were used after he was already missing. That landed heavy. Which means, I said slowly, which means Hawthorne wasn't negotiating, Ajax finished. He was manufacturing consent. We both looked back at the glowing clock across the street. 12:47. Not punctuation. Forgery. I thought it was the moment of death, I said. Ajax shook his head. It was the moment of exposure. Silence settled in. Federal units were still processing the warehouse behind us. Scar was on a stretcher now, conscious but cuffed. Hawthorne was seated in the back of an SUV, posture still perfect, wrists restrained in front. You were bait, Ajax said evenly. I figured. You were useful, he corrected. I smirked faintly. That your version of gratitude? That's my version of honesty. Another long draw, cold air filling space where smoke had been. Laura's alive, I said. Ajax nodded once. In protective custody, she flagged it. She understood what it meant. And she knew she'd be next. I stared at the bank sign again. 12:47. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. You were already compromised, he said plainly. Connie. Yes. I absorbed that without comment. Ajax turned slightly toward me. Hawthorne will try to spin this as internal fraud, rogue accounting, emotional retaliation. He'll use your proximity to Macklin's widow. I expected that. He'll respect you for tonight, Ajax added quietly. I gave him a look. That's not comforting. It should be. Across the dock, Hawthorne's SUV door closed. The engine started. He was going to holding. Not prison. Not yet. He'd have lawyers before sunrise. I crushed the lucky under my heel. You get the arrest, I said. Ajax studied me for a second. You get the story. That almost felt like partnership. Almost. As the convoy began to roll out, Hawthorne's SUV passed under the bank sign. 12:47 still glowing above it. He didn't look at me, but I knew he was counting. And I knew something else. Men like him don't see prison as an ending. They see it as a delay. Ajax stepped toward the Delta 88. You coming? He asked. I stayed where I was for a second longer, watching the red glow of his cigarette fade into the night. Yeah, I said finally. January had closed one chapter, but it hadn't finished the game. I lingered before the Delta's door and looked across the street at the bank sign. 12:47. Bright, clinical, certain. Then it blinked. 12:48. I slid into the passenger seat. January doesn't end wars. It just moves the clock. Case file